President Trump says he remains committed to his agenda of building a wall along the southern border and restricting immigration into this country. Just today, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer was asked whether the president's insistence on a wall could imperil American security by getting an anti-American candidate elected in Mexico. Here's how he replied.
This is a national security issue, something that, frankly, when he's discussed this with President Peña Nieto of Mexico, that there is a shared concern about drug cartels, drug trafficking, arms sales over the border. There is a shared concern for the respect of the border because it means a lot to both sides.
Whatever you think of President Trump's efforts, they may be supported by a majority of the public, a thin one, but still, for instance, a recent AP poll found that 52% of Americans believe the risks of admitting refugees outweigh the benefits and arrivals should be restricted accordingly. Jorge Ramos is an anchor for Univision and one of the president's loudest critics on immigration. He joins us tonight from Miami. Jorge, thanks for coming on.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So at an event several weeks ago in February, you said this, and I wanted to ask you about it, and I'm quoting you. I'm a proud Latino immigrant here in the United States. You know exactly what is going on here in the U.S. There are many people who do not want us to be here and who want to create a wall in order to separate us. But you know what? This is also our country. Let me repeat this. Our country, not theirs. It's our country. Who's the us and who's the they? Whose country is it?
This is our country. It is yours, it is mine, and it is ours. The interesting thing is that with the Trump administration and many people who support Donald Trump, they think it is their country, that it is a white country, and they are absolutely wrong. This is not a white country. This is not their country. It is ours, and that's precisely what I'm saying. Look, in 2044, in 2044, this country, the white population will become a minority. It will be a minority-majority country. That's precisely what I'm saying. Latinos, Asians, African Americans, whites. It is our country, Tucker.
Right. Yeah. Well, let me just point out that you are white. Obviously, you're whiter than I am. You've got blue eyes. So, I mean, I don't know exactly what you mean by white or Latino, but let me just ask you again to explain our country, not theirs. Who is they? Whose country is it not?
Well, many people who want to go back to 1965 when there was a white majority. Many people who believe that Latinos and immigrants and refugees shouldn't be here. That's precisely what I was referring to.
So it's not their country?
Before the election,
belong to those people? What are you saying?
Well, it's also their country, but it's not only their country.
Right,
we have to understand that this is a multicultural, multiracial country, and we have to live and be tolerant. And that's exactly what I was referring to.
Well, I certainly agree with that.
Country.
Now, I don't want to bring this to race. You did, so I'm going to follow up on that. You have posited yourself as the leader of Latinos, and I'm not exactly sure what that word means. So Latinos seem to encompass, I don't know, German Guatemalans and Italian Argentines and Afro-Cubans and non-Spanish-speaking Peruvians and, I don't know, blue-eyed rich Mexicans like you. What do those groups have in common exactly?
Well, what we have in common is that mostly that we come from a region in the world, Latin America, and there are many differences. Many people call them Latinos, many people call them Hispanics. We tend to speak more Spanish at home than others. We have not only hundreds but thousands of mass media in our own language, in contrast with what happened with Italians or Europeans before us. So in other words, it's a kind of immigration that has a distinct characteristics that others didn't have before.
But what is distinct, again, just to be totally clear, if I am a non-Spanish speaking Brazilian, I speak Portuguese, I'm a non-Spanish speaking Peruvian, I'm 100% German, but I live in Guatemala, and there are a lot of them there, as you know. There are also a lot of 100% Italian people in Argentina. There are a lot of African Latin American Cubans. What do they have in common? A lot of them don't like each other. They don't speak the same language. They have very different cultures. I don't understand why they're under one heading.
It's not really that complicated. It's simply a matter of a country of origin, either for you or for your family. Again, most of us speak Spanish. Most of us come from Latin America. About half the Latino population, adult Latino population, are immigrants. So that's what differentiates us from other groups. But mostly has to do with the country of origin. That's
okay. It still doesn't make any sense to me at all. But as a political matter, it makes a lot of sense because it allows people like you to say, I represent everybody on an entire continent, when clearly that's not true. Well, our conversation with Jorge Ramos continues in just a minute. There's a lot more ahead. Plus, the big push to repeal Obamacare began just 2 days ago. yet it's already in trouble. Talk to Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, to see if the Republican Party's plan can be saved and find out whether Congress plans to act on the rest of President Trump's agenda, which it has not been acting on. Also, one guest who says today's women's marches and others like them expose American liberalism as exhausted, a sham ideology more interested in genitalia-shaped hats than human freedom. It's a fascinating position, and he'll explain it for us just ahead. Welcome back. Here's the second half of our interview with Univision anchor Jorge Ramos, the part where he gives up and admits, I'm right. Just kidding. Watch. Get back to the point that you were making a minute ago, that Americans have no right to be concerned about the dramatic demographic change taking place in their country. Let me just stipulate, I'm for getting along, I'm for colorblindness, I'm for tolerance, 100%. But I also think that if things radically change in your country, it's okay for you to say, what is this? And maybe I don't want to live in a country that looks nothing like the country I grew up in. Is that bigoted? It seems to me in Mexico you'd be allowed to say that.
Well, we have to understand that there's a demographic wave or revolution, if you want to call it, happening right here in the United States. Right now, there are about 60 million Latinos. In about 35 years, there's going to be 100 million Latinos. 1 in 3 is going to be a Latino. So there's a demographic revolution or a Latino revolution going on. Now, on the other hand, if you are implying that there's an invasion to the United States, that is
I'm not
true.
saying invasion. I'm merely saying you're name-calling. Wait, you come to this country, you make a ton of money, and then you yell at people who say, well, wait a second, you know, this is having an effect on my kid's school, on my culture, on the economy, and your point is you're not allowed to have that opinion.
Actually, that is not true. It's obviously it's having an impact, but it's having a positive impact.
Yeah, in some ways it is, but not in all ways.
No. And overall, there's an immigration surplus. All immigrants contribute about $2 billion to the economy of the United States. In other words, immigrants contribute and put much more money into the system than what they take out in social services, according to the National Academy of Sciences. In 20 years, it's been $54 billion in input on immigration surplus. So it is a great business to have immigrants in this country.
Those numbers aren't exactly right, but I think some immigrants contribute a lot. Some immigrants contribute a lot,
the National Academy of Sciences, those are the numbers.
It's a little more complicated than that, but I don't want to debate that right now. I just want to make the point that there is a downside as well. There's clearly an upside, and we all recognize, and people like immigrants actually in America, despite your claims. They do. But there's also a downside. 15% of federal inmates, prisoners, are Mexican citizens. So, like, why shouldn't I be allowed to say that's a problem? I don't want those. I don't want criminals here from another country. They're not even citizens.
No, that's precisely the problem, because you, like Donald Trump, are also criminalizing the immigrant population. That is not true.
I'm not criminalizing them. I'm noting a fact of who they are.
It is not true. These are the facts. 97% of undocumented immigrants, 97% are good people. Less than 3% are bad hombres, or they committed a felony, according to the Migration Policy Institute.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
The vast majority, Tucker, are good people. They're not criminals.
I'm not arguing that the vast majority are criminals. Now, their presence here illegally is a crime, and I think we should be honest about that. But most are decent people. I agree, and most Americans agree.
Most of them are.
15% of all federal inmates in America are Mexican citizens. That's not a small number. That's many, 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 many thousands. Doesn't mean they're all bad. It means that's a big number.
I don't know what's your source. I'm giving you my source. My source is
the
Migration Policy Institute.
How's that?
Well, I don't know if that's correct.
So you don't actually know anything about this. So that's my
what I'm saying is that,
you're making generalizations that are not rooted in fact.
This is important thing, Tucker. 3%, less than 3% of undocumented immigrants commit felonies. In contrast, about 6% of Americans commit felonies. In other words, the more immigrants that you have, the more immigrants that you have.
You made that point at the outset. So let me ask you one last question. We're almost out of time, and you don't have command of these numbers, so it's pointless. But let me ask you this, a theoretical question. What immigration restrictions would you favor in Mexico? It's already a felony to be there illegally, but what further restrictions in the country of Mexico, the country of your birth, would you favor?
Mexico is a terrible example for the protection of immigrants. Mexico treats Central American immigrants in a terrible way. So I wouldn't put Mexico as an example. I think countries should be judged by the way they treat the most vulnerable, not the most powerful. And Mexico is doing a horrible job when it comes to human rights and when it comes to treating Central Americans. On the other hand, here in the United States, I think we have the responsibility to treat immigrants in a decent, in a humane way. we are responsible partly because of that. They come here, undocumented immigrants, because there are thousands of American companies who hire them, and millions of Americans, including you and me and the audience, who benefit from their work. So I think we have the right and the responsibility to treat them much better than the way they treat them in Mexico.
Let me just ask you really quickly. Will you just acknowledge the truth, and you're obviously a very rich person, and I'm around rich people a lot. Rich people in America disproportionately benefit from low-wage, low-skilled immigration in the form of household help, in the form of cheap labor. Let's be totally honest. The middle of the country doesn't benefit a lot from this. It lowers wages. They don't hire a lot of household help. And there is a lot of crime, whether you're willing to admit it or not. So why are they bigots for...
No, there's not a lot of crime because...
Look, you don't actually know what I'm talking about, so let's just pretend that I didn't say that because it's a stupid argument.
Donald Trump is the king of fake news when it comes to undocumented immigrants.
I've heard the talking points. But let me just get back to the economics of it. It doesn't actually help an American citizen born here making 40 grand a year to have a bunch of people willing to work for 25 grand a year move into his town. Will you concede that?
No. There's a minimum impact on... No, you can laugh if you want, but that's not the truth. Because you're laughing, that doesn't mean it's the truth. Check the National Academy of Sciences. There's an immigration surplus. Overall, immigrants contribute much more to the economy than what they take away in education and social services. Those are the facts. Some people might be affected, but overall, which is what we care about, overall, they have a positive impact.
Okay. Jorge Ramos, thanks a lot for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.